This presentation is now being recorded. Sasa Medical, please take it away.
Okay. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, I believe everybody can see my screen now.
Yep.
Okay, so Noah.
Yep. All right. Hello, we are Sasa Medical. We were working with Dr. Ian Wilson on a new reprocessing of single-use medical device company. And we were required to create a pitch deck for this company. I'm Noah Bruno, accompanied by my partners, Araba and John, and this is our pitch deck. So we have two problems that we encountered, one of which is in the United States. In terms of medical equipment and waste, 6 million tons is wasted annually and 14,000 tons is wasted daily within the medical field. 20 to 25% of waste is plastic and comes from these single-use devices. And of that, 91% of the plastics reside in landfills are not yet recycled, which is a pretty huge problem considering this is just only the US and the waste within our country. The next problem is in the sub-Saharan African countries. They rely heavily on imported medical devices, which is causing a pretty expensive price for all these devices and really causing it to become unaffordable at times for a lot of people in these countries, which has led to a lot more diseases and a lot more sickness and a lot more death, which is pretty bad. These single-use medical devices are also very short because of the importation and all that stuff and expensiveness, so the demand isn't really there. So this is our second problem that we're going to look into. So of our solution, we want to repurpose these single-use medical devices from the waste that is within these US hospitals. From there, we want to create a local reprocessing site in these sub-Saharan places, which will allow less for the importation and cause the price of these to go down. On the right, you can see the image of how we want to, like our business plan wants to be. We want to start with the collection of the used medical devices in these wastelands, and we want to sort and label the ones that we can and can't use. We then want to go through a series of cleaning, disinfection, testing, and sterilization to then reprocessing these devices for use. And then ultimately, they will end up in the hospitals within the sub-Saharan African countries. So for this market size and to show everything is reachable, we started off by looking at the 4.9 billion medical device industry just in all of Africa, which as you can see is pretty high. We then looked at our SAM and focused on just the single-use devices, just because medical devices in general is such a broad topic. We just wanted to minimize that down to see what the single-use device market looked like in sub-Saharan Africa, which as you can see is $1.4 billion. Then of that $1.4 billion, we took 3% of that for the 4 countries that we want to target, which is Rwanda, Uganda, Tanzania, and Kenya. And we ultimately got with a servable obtainable market of 120 million, which is the amount that we would want to gather from these 4 countries. So next we created our value proposition, which we think highlights the best of both worlds, eliminating the waste in the US while also providing a lot of help for healthcare facilities in East Africa. So I'm going to read that out for you to hear. So for healthcare facilities in East Africa who need constant supply of single-use medical devices for treatment of chronic diseases, cancers, cardiovascular, and biliary diseases, Sasa Medical will provide a cost-effective and high-quality supply of locally manufactured SUDs. Unlike our competitors, Johnson & Johnson, MedTech, Stryker, and Ugaromed, our business specifically targets medical waste to reduce its environmental impact or provides single-use medical devices that are reliable and safe for patients and healthcare professionals alike. Next, Araba is going to talk about a little bit of our customers and the places and hospitals we want to target.
Okay, so as Noah already indicated, Sasa Medicals will be stationed in East Africa, and it's going to serve Rwanda, Tanzania, Uganda, and Kenya countries, specifically to referral hospitals, medical centers, and private hospitals. So this is what we concluded on based on the interviews that we conducted with some doctors from these areas, and these hospitals are dedicated to treating cancer patients. They have the expertise, and then they have facilities that can treat these patients. So we believe that these are going to be the customers for Sasa Medicals. So for our competitors, we identified 4 main competitors for the business, which is nonprofit, which includes the United Nations and Project Cure. And then we have Ruggero Med, Johnson & Johnson, MedTech, and Stryker. Johnson & Johnson, MedTech, and Stryker are currently the leading competitors in the industry in the United States. And they also have some connections with some African countries. So we believe that they are Ruggero Med is located in Rwanda, and it's a local business that imports single-use devices into the country and rebrand them to sell them to health hospital facilities in these countries. So we believe that they are also a potential competitor. For nonprofits, we usually have a lot of nonprofits donating medical devices to certain countries and cities in Africa. So we believe that they also have a potential of being a competitor for Sasa Medical. Now, our 4 main capabilities for the business is going to be the upcycling of materials, which is in terms of sourcing our raw materials from the hospital waste that is created in the United States. And so far, none of these competitors are doing that. In terms of the low price, one of the main values that Sasa Medical is bringing on the market is to sell its products lower than the market value. And that we have the nonprofits who are obviously donating their product for free, and Ruggero Med, which is already locally operating in Rwanda. In terms of local manufacturing, as we already stated in our problem statement, African countries rely heavily on the importation of medical devices, and it is an objective to have a manufacturing site locally, specifically in Rwanda, to manufacture these medical devices and serve the identified countries. And then we are going to reprocess these devices and sell them. And so far, we have Johnson & Johnson and Stryker doing these, just that the only difference is that they reprocess devices that they already manufactured, and so they are not tapping into the waste side of what Sasa Medicals is going to do. So for our funding, we, based on research and interviews that we conducted, we realized that most of the funding for this business is going to go into sourcing and shipment of these medical devices from the United States and other locations, and then also into the manufacturing and warehousing aspect, which is going to take a chunk of the funding for this business. And then another chunk is going to go into the general administrative staff and then costs and salaries of employees. And then the miscellaneous, which is for unaccounted costs. We do not have a specific amount stated here because most of our research was focused on establishing demand for this business in terms of the diseases and then the devices that we'll be dealing in. So our team that worked on this project is myself, Araba. We have Noah and John. I have the business development expertise in the MS Time program. And then there's Noah, who is also has an entrepreneurship background, also in the technology innovation management program. And we have John, who was our sustainability expert on this project. So John is going to take over and discuss the environmental impacts that Sasa Medicals will be solving.
Thank you, Abba. So I want to begin with the aspect from the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And one of their goals is number 12, which seeks to prevent unsustainable patterns of consumption and production because it can lead to climate change and biodiversity loss, but also pollution that can impact human health in our environment that affects us as well. So in the aspect of Sasa Medicals, while providing health care, we have to consider the aspect that we're not harming the environment and mitigating the potential waste that are entering the landfills that could inevitably lead back to human health in terms of like microplastics or other harmful chemicals. So how this project was approaching the assessment of the environmental impact was to study the components of the devices. In this case, it was a pigtail catheter. And it considered all the manufacturing processes and the amount of materials that's often required. During the manufacturing process, the one material that was had the most impact was the metal material that was meant for radio black. In that instance, they had a lot of impact. And so the key areas that was, oh, you can go back. The key areas that was focused in the assessments were the global warming impacts and the energy consumption for the manufacturing. And the other impacts were like ecotoxicity. These are carcinogenic chemicals that were introduced into the environment that could essentially harm wildlife or like our food chain supplies, but also impact potentially human health as well. If you can go to the next slide. So the key numbers that were generated from this estimate was the carbon dioxide emissions and the amount of energy that was used for the production of these catheters. So in the top numbers, those are the amounts for just one catheter. And then based on the estimates of how much catheters used annually, based on like clinic, those are the general estimates for 612 catheters. So what do they mean? Can you go to the next slide? So in terms of relating this to relevant like measurements or relatable objects in our everyday use, in terms of one catheter, the energy used for the production purposes could power a PC for 4 hours a day for 4 years. In terms of the emissions that's generated from like producing one catheter, it's equated to like powering home for 9.7 days or using 43 gallons of gasoline in a standard average internal combustion engine car. Now, if we scaled it to the production or the use that is used by clinics in Africa with 612 catheters, those estimates jump up, especially the amount of energy used in the mass production supply of single-use disposable. So in terms of the energy consumption, it can power home for 8 years in 4 months, or in terms of like emissions, it would be equated to like 7.8 tons of cement produced. So in terms of like the environmental impact, Sasa Medicals, in terms of repurposing these equipments for a second chance or a second utility, it prevents all this emissions and waste and energy loss from being retained. So essentially, you want to prevent all this waste from going into the environment by creating new catheters that essentially are either going to be tossed out. So you might as well use the catheters in terms of maximizing its utility and using it for medical procedures before tossing it out. If you can go on.
Okay, so based on this project, we had some limitations based on our backgrounds. We believe that we need expertise in venture capital, in finance, in international import and export regulations, and supply chain, because the business model, as we already explained, deals with importing, exporting medical devices from the United States to Africa, and then the importation regulations, which we believe that expertise in this area will be of much help. And although our reports pretty much centered on studying the industry, establishing demand, and in terms of the countries and then the diseases that we stated, we still believe that we need expertise in these areas to help us develop more into this area and for the business as well. Thank you. Any questions?
So again, I'd like to ask, actually at this point, we don't have anybody asking. So just if somebody has a question, go ahead and start talking.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, go ahead.
Can you elaborate on the process of delivering this medical equipment to Africa? Like maybe I missed this part, but I want to be sure that I understand it correct. So basically they're being delivered from the US to Africa, right?
Yeah, so basically the whole idea is to get the devices that are considered as medical waste. And so it's gonna be like going to different locations in the United States, but we are open to also getting them from all over the world. And then they will be gathered at one location and then shipped to where we are gonna have the reprocessing plant. And then it's gonna go through the rigorous sanitation and everything that it's supposed to go through. and then be given a new life for use in the hospitals. So that's the idea behind it.
Okay, we have questions from two of our guests. So let's hear from Gwendal first, and then after that, we'll hear from Rob.
Awesome. Yeah, great presentation. Quick question for you. You selected 4 East African countries. Have you looked into some regulation that might be in place for reusing medical devices, especially if they're coming from a foreign country?
For our customer discovery, the interviews that we had with doctors from these countries, we did not necessarily ask them about the regulations because we believe they do not have the needed information, but we were much more focused on if it's going to be a need, if like how many cases of cancers are they having, how many cases of biliary diseases, what kind of hospitals are attending to these patients, and what is their personal view of using reprocessed devices in these countries. So in terms of the regulations, we did not dive so much into it, but it's something that we look forward to doing.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. And Rob, you're up.
Yeah, thank you. Interesting presentation. I kind of a sort of a point of clarification. Are you buying this medical waste from the from partners in the US? And if so, like what's their incentivization to work with you?
So, okay, so the idea is to buy it, but already the hospitals have accounted that they've already purchased these medical devices. And once they take them into the operating room or the room where they attend to the patients and then they'll use them, they still declare them as medical waste. So already in their books, it's like, it's a loss, but then if we have to buy them, you're going to buy them. If they're benevolent enough to also donate it to us, that's also a good thing. But the idea is to purchase them from the hospitals.
So the reason I asked that question is I feel like your real customer should be the medical waste disposal companies, because I think it's going to boil down to who is going to be doing the sorting of the medical devices, because to your point, there's thousands and thousands of medical devices. So how are you ensuring you're just getting catheters? I don't know if that's something that you would get a hospital to do, but it is something that if it's a supply chain type of revenue model for a company that's in the disposal, the biomedical waste disposal business, that might end up being a better partner. And then, so that was more of a comment. The other thing was, do you know how many times a single-use device can be, like, let's take catheters. Do you have any indication how many times that can be recycled, and how are you tracking if it's used versus new?
So in terms of if it's used, it's first of all, as I was initially explained, it's been taken out of its packaging into the operating room or the consulting room. So once it's been done, that it's classified as used. And also, we're also going to target like devices that are nearing their shelf life that legally cannot be used. But then once it goes through the whole reprocessing aspect, it can be given a new life that can be used. So on the average, we believe it can be used like 2 times on the average.
Okay.
If that answers your question.
Yeah, I think, okay, so Joy, I'm running short on time, but if you've got a quick question, I also want to mention that Ian, Dr. Ian Wilson, who is the founder of the company and who has been present for this whole presentation, has been keeping quiet to let the students talk, but he would like to have a word at the end before we move on to the next presentation. So Joy and then Ian, please.
Yeah, sorry, just a quick question. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I missed a little bit of it, so I don't know if you address this in the talk. I had to step away for a second, but one of the challenges of African countries, unfortunately, is the corruption. So I wonder if you addressed the effective and ideally corrupt-free dissemination of these tools once they get to the receiving end in the countries that you've identified here, so Rwanda, Uganda, Tanzania, and Kenya. So once they arrive firsthand into those countries, to make sure they ultimately get into the appropriate hands, the appropriate hospitals, without people sort of trying to make some money off of these tools.
Yeah, I mean, I'm from Ghana, so I pretty much have some kind of familiarity with this. So in our report, we recommended that it would be essential to have some local partnerships with these hospital facilities and those who are in the exporting industry in these countries, just so you have that cordial relationship with them where you can build trust with them, and so you know that once the devices get there, they can take care of it and ensure that it gets the rightful owners.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And let's all hear, now I'd like us to hear from Dr. Ian Wilson.
Hi, great presentations. I just wanted to chime in on a couple of the comments from the audience. The first one has to do with the sourcing. So if you think about these devices, the idea is to first use the devices that are unused, because those you're basically just resetting the clock in terms of the shelf life of those devices, versus a device that has been used in a patient that has biologic material on it that would be designated as waste. The idea is to source unused. There's a huge market of unused devices throughout the world. That's going to be the primary source of devices that we seek to reprocess and then reset the clock. So in terms of the supply chain, the logistics will be reprocess or procurement from around the world, US being the market that we're closest to, but the Asian market, Southeast Asia, the subcontinent, all have devices which are unused, which will be sent to a central warehousing location via a third-party logistics partner, probably in some of the Emirates, maybe Dubai, and then sent to the reprocessing plants in East Africa according to those plants' ability to reprocess, such that the warehousing happens one place with a little bit less warehousing risk versus warehousing on the continent. And very astute question about the risk of that last mile delivery, right? That's exactly as Araba mentioned, imperative for us to partner with people who are already doing some form of distributorship. I mean, we don't want to take food off anyone's plate and create problems, but instead partner with them such that they can participate in this. They can own some part of the value chain, versus us being completely disruptive to something that already has some kind of an infrastructure. So better to partner than to compete in some situations. But that's basically the schematic: is unused devices warehoused somewhere that's central to Earth, like the Emirates, and then sent to reprocessing in East Africa according to the capacity of the facility to reprocess. But the idea is to reprocess the unused devices because that's safer and cheaper than reprocessing used ones.
Okay. I think given the time, I'm going to remind everybody that if you have further questions, you can private chat the presenters or Dr. Wilson if he's still here. I know he's taking time out of his busy medical schedule to be here, so he may not stay for the rest of the presentations or all of them, but we have three student presenters who have been involved with this for months, and Dr. Wilson here. So please feel free to private chat them. I will also at this point be turning off the recording.